Hi, my name is Tyler Duffy, and I'm the host of the Building the Bridges to a Better Future podcast. I was born and raised in Lacombe, Alberta, spending my formative years growing up on a buffalo ranch. After high school, I became a power engineer and spent 11 years working in the energy industry. I left that career behind and moved on to study a psychology degree at Red Deer Polytechnic. While completing that degree, I read one thing that stuck in my head that began to change my thinking, shape my beliefs, and ultimately guide my decisions from that point forward. The Canadian Mental Health Association had published some research that said that 80% of lifelong mental health issues have their root in early childhood trauma. Let me say that again. 80% of lifelong mental health issues have their root in early childhood trauma. Now that got me thinking. Does that mean that 80% of lifelong mental health issues are preventable? So research has shown that early childhood trauma is one of the major causes to lifelong mental health issues. So I feel, as a society, we should recognize that and implement programs to reduce, buffer, and eliminate early childhood trauma. Otherwise, we will never be taking a preventative approach to mental health issues. We will be locked in a perpetual process of reacting to mental health issues when they surface later on in life. Like the old saying goes, rather than mop up the bleeding, you gotta stop the bleeding. Now, this was new information to me, but professionals in psychology, education, and the social work world are well aware of this. And community leaders in Red Deer had started to create programs to address this issue by increasing the amount, variety, frequency, and quality of social support the kids get at critical stages in their social and emotional development. The hypothesis is that if we implement positive social support programs for youth and maintain them over years so that they become a permanent part of the Canadian culture, then it may be possible to turn the tide and begin a downward trend in the number of people that struggle with mental health issues in future generations. In this podcast, we will be interviewing the key people that created these programs and have worked tirelessly for 20 years to maintain them. The goal is to share what we've done in Red Deer, why we have done it, and how you can do the same in your community if you're passionate about taking a preventative approach to mental health as well. Come and check it out as we begin to build the bridges to create a better future. Hi, welcome back to the Building the Bridges podcast. This is episode 6, and in the previous episodes we met some of the key ladies that were influential in starting the Go Girls Day back in 2003, which is a very positive program for young girls to promote positive social and emotional development. So we met Denise Ferdine, Leah Beaton, and Kelly Roslinski that were all part of that team of women leaders in Red Deer that started out the program. Then 2010 range-ish or whatever, Sean Granger came into Red Deer and brought up a point of, hey, this is a great program for young kids. Why don't we implement and create a similar program for boys? So that was the creation of the Nights in Training Day. And that was where Dr. Greg Wells kind of entered the story. When I was doing my psychology degree, Dr. Wells taught many courses that I took in developmental psychology. And then he actually recruited me to work on an independent research study investigating cross-age peer mentorship. And that program we called it the Nights in Training program. And basically the way it worked is we would take high school kids and we would train them to deliver this mentorship curriculum, and then they would go to the classrooms with the grade 5 kids once a week for 12 weeks to work with them and teach them all the lessons that were in the curriculum. So at that point, Dr. Greg entered the story, and Greg also worked on the the new committee that formed to create the Nights in Training Day for Boys, which was a one-day event for 700 grade 5 boys, where they have high school mentors come in as clan leaders and lead them through different sessions throughout the day. So that's where Dr. Greg enters the story, and we're going to learn a little bit more about him today. How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing really good, Tyler, and yeah, it's good to see you in person. Yeah, we haven't seen each other in person for several years now.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think I finished a psychology degree in 2012. So yeah, it's been a little over a decade. Cool. So just so the audience kind of knows a little bit more about you, could you introduce yourself and tell us about your academic journey from completing your bachelor's degree to your master's, all the way up to your PhD?
Sure. So yeah, a bit about me. Greg Wells. I teach psychology here at RDP, and I've really sort of lived all over a number of different places in Canada. I immigrated here from New Zealand, but when I think about where I'm from, I usually think of Calgary, because that's where I went to high school, and so I have a real connection to Alberta, I think, and so I lived in Ontario, I lived in BC. I moved to Ontario for my graduate school. After I was finished, when I saw the opportunity came to come back to Alberta, and Red Deer College at the time was hiring, I was really interested in putting my name forward for a position. So that's what brought me back to Alberta. My memories and fondness for Alberta as one of the places that I grew up in. And I've been teaching psychology here for about 20 years. And before that, I completed my PhD in developmental psychology, as you say, human development, at the University of Windsor. And most people, when they think of human development or developmental psychology, they think of child development, and certainly that's a big part of it. But development is really lifelong, lifespan. And so from the moment of conception right through until the end of life, that's human development, and I find all of it fascinating. As a developmental psychologist, and my sub-discipline of psychology, I think everyone in a particular sub-discipline sort of sees their own discipline as being particularly important. But I think it's accurate to say that developmental psychology and human development is particularly important in terms of its application to the real world. And for sure, I see the main goal of my profession, or what I see as the most important part of my profession, is the optimization of development, looking at ways of taking basic research and applying it in the real world to make things better for kids and their families. So, our contingent of faculty here at Red Deer Polytechnic in psychology is relatively small. And so we all tend to be generalists and to have our irons in many fires. And certainly that's my experience. I've taught, I teach courses across the spectrum in development, from child development to adolescence to adulthood and aging at the second year level, and then advanced level courses and things like cognitive development or cognitive aging, special topics courses in successful aging or applied research in Alzheimer's degree. So I teach all across the spectrum, and that's also true in terms of the research that I've been involved with and the community initiatives that I've been a part of. They're all different aspects of development have been a part of those initiatives for me. And so in terms of the research that I've been involved with, so many projects over the years, but I thought I'd talk about a couple. One from a couple of years ago, and these are all projects that involve students, and we'll talk about independent study courses like the Nights in Training one that you took shortly, I believe. But they all involve students, and the ones that I've been involved in typically involve community. So they're community-focused research projects, and one that I thought I'd talk about involved children with special needs. So these are children with complex needs, like autism spectrum disorder. And this project looked at their parents and the perception of their parents of the therapeutic relationship that they had with their children's therapists. And so these children often have multiple therapists, so physiotherapists and occupational therapists, speech-language pathologists, psychologists are often involved. And it's well known that the outcomes of that, the success of the outcomes of therapy are closely tied to how satisfied the parent is with the therapist, right, and the therapeutic relationship. So we had a couple of parent advocates that came and asked us to be involved with this project, exploring the perspective of parents with regard to that therapeutic relationship. And one thing that we found that was pretty cool, I think, is that, you know, if you ask any therapist, they'll tell you that their approach to therapy is a person-centered one, a client-centered one, a family-centered one. And, you know, essentially a person-centered approach is one where the client is empowered and has a say in the direction that their therapy takes. And so all therapists will say that their approach is a person-centered approach, client-centered approach, but do the parents think that? And what we found is that, in fact, parents often don't feel that they're heard, that they are having a meaningful an opportunity to have a meaningful input in terms of their child's therapy. And one interesting thing that we found is that it was connected with age a bit. And so young mothers in particular, their experience was that they felt that they weren't being heard by their therapist and didn't have an opportunity to really contribute meaningfully to their child's therapy. So they were you know, not particularly satisfied with that aspect of the therapy, which will, as I say, have an impact on the success of the therapy. So important research, I think, in terms of informing parents and therapists about the importance of assuring that therapy is person-centered. A second project that I thought I'd just briefly mention is one that we're just involved in last year. And it was a really cool project that involved young adults who reside in long-term care and continuing care. And of course, the vast majority of residents of long-term care are older adults, many experiencing frailties associated with late life, many experiencing dementia. But about 7% of the population in long-term care facilities in Alberta is below age 65. And so these are individuals that are there for different reasons. They have different care needs. Their needs are often associated with things like traumatic brain injury, MS. So the care needs are different, but also they're a different generation. So their interests, their preferences, their sense of who they are in the context of where they live is very different. And so often these young adults feel a bit disconnected from where they're living. They feel they don't have a lot of control over the direction of their care. They feel that they're not really in charge, and that where they're living doesn't match their identity as they see it. And so this project looked at enhancing the well-being of young adults residing in continuing care. And this is a project that included a psychology student who was sort of doing this analysis of an intervention. The intervention involved a creative arts instructor and students who worked on these creativity workshops with young adults that where they produced creative artifacts, these sort of picture boards that collages and images that really reflected what brings them happiness, what's important in their life, and so forth. So that was part A, these creative workshops that identified need. And then the our SIMTAC engineers, the Center for Innovation and Manufacturing, they joined the project, and with these needs in mind, worked together in a co-design process with these young adults to customize assistive technology to address their needs and thereby enhance the sense of control they have over the direction of their care. So just one example of the sorts of assistive technology modification. There's one young adult who a big part of her identity was her art, her drawing and painting. But with her wheelchair, it was difficult to take the art supplies with her and so forth. And so this customized wheelchair was created, or this assistive technology was created, which attached to the wheelchair and provided an easel and a way of storing and transporting her art supplies.
Oh,
and
nice.
So these sorts of these sorts of interactive experiences we found were really beneficial to the well-being of the young adults that resided there. So just a couple examples of the sorts of projects that I've been involved with in my years at RDP.
Nice. Okay, let's kind of talk about that specific age range and like early childhood development, or I guess late childhood, early adolescence development, because that's the whole. When we did that independent research project on the Knights in Training cross-age peer mentorship, we specifically targeted that grade 5 age group, right? Because that's around the age of 10, when they're kind of growing from late childhood to early adolescence. They're forming relationships outside of their family group a little more, sort of thing. And if you think about Erik Erikson's stages of development model, identity formation is kind of right in that wheel hub, right? So with just in general, can you talk about, from your perspective, how important that transitional age is from, let's go with like, say, 8 to 12 kind of thing?
Sure, yeah. And in terms of what changes cognitively at that age, super important time of life. There's a lot of changes that are taking place in thinking. Thinking's becoming more logical and organized. Children develop a better ability to plan, to solve problems, to make decisions, a better understanding of cause and effect, an increased ability to see multiple dimensions of a problem. We see changes in various aspects of cognition, including working memory, so the ability to actively work on information. The capacity of working memory improves quite dramatically during that time period. There are changes that take place in the ability to attend, to filter out distractions, to selectively attend, to keep focused, right? The ability to sustain attention, to switch attention from one thing to another. So we see improvements in that area. We see improvements in the use of memory strategies. So children of this age start to use strategies, and they start to use more sophisticated strategies to help them perform better cognitively. And we see improvements in what's known as metacognition, thinking about thinking. So children have a better ability to accurately monitor their ongoing cognitive processes. They have a better understanding of their own cognitive strengths and limitations. And as I said, a better understanding or an increased repertoire of strategies, but also the metacognitive knowledge to know which strategies will be effective for them in which situations to help them perform effectively. So quite dramatic changes that we see in terms of cognition. And along with those are changes that take place in emotional, social and emotional well-being. So you mentioned identity, and it really is a time of exploration, right? A time of figuring out who you are and what you're good at, a time of increased independence, of engaging in new experiences, testing limits, questioning boundaries, questioning values. Peers are becoming more influential, and your relationship with your family is sort of a new balance in terms of family roles and responsibilities. So a number of important changes that are taking place. And these cognitive changes include improvement in perspective taking and the ability to regulate emotion and problem solve, as I say. And these make children more competent in terms of navigating social interactions with their peers and developing positive relationships. So, and the outcome of all of this exploration, this self-reflection, is it really sets the course for future life choices, future achievements, relationships, personal growth. So 8 to 12 is that late childhood, early adolescence period is super important in terms of development and setting the course for one's future.
Yeah, like I feel it's kind of like laying the foundation, right? And it's such a critical stage of development that if the transition from Erik Erikson's model from identity versus identity diffusion sort of thing, right? So it's if they go through, I feel if they go through that age of 8 to 12 and aren't successful in forming a positive identity, that can have long-term negative effects on the rest of their life. Is that accurate? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, well, certainly. One of the big challenges, or the big social challenge, is really to figure out who you are, right? And so, success in doing so really sets the stage in Erikson's model to develop intimacy and to move forward with one's life. And a failure to figure out who you are, right, or difficulty in figuring out who you are, has a number of adverse consequences.
Gotcha. Yeah. Before we dive into this next one, I just want to, because I remember there was that you and Dr. Audie recruited me to do that literature review to inform the Knights in Training Day, right? And I remember one of the numerous things from that kind of landed in my brain and really started to shape my beliefs. But as far as identity versus identity diffusion goes, is what they had found in research studies is that individuals who ended up like with lifelong mental health issues, you know what I mean? Like when they're later on in life and they've had mental health issues, they've struggled with it the whole time, kind of thing. They often found that to be correlated with being identity diffused and a lack of a solid identity. And that what they found is that those individuals were either one side of the spectrum or the other. So they had no expressive identity at all, right? Which your expressive identity is something that brings you passion, that gives you a sense of purpose in who you are. So they had no expressive identity, or they were trying to be too many things, and the end result of each is they end up identity diffused in the end, right? So that was kind of why that a guiding force with the Knights in Training and Grow Boys Day was, let's give these kids an opportunity to try as many different things as we can, and then hopefully it facilitates that identity formation process, right? And hopefully they find something that they latch onto, whether maybe it's music, maybe it's carpentry, maybe it's whatever, but let's give them opportunities to figure out who they are. Is that, with regards to identity and identity diffusion, what are your beliefs on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's a time of exploration, and yeah, having the opportunity to try on a number of hats, so to speak, is really valuable. And it's normal to be in this sort of state of moratorium in adolescence, even through to early adulthood, where you're figuring it out. Mm-hmm. You're trying out different things and really searching for who you are in the world. And it isn't that once you've sort of established this coherent sense of identity that then it's over, right? We go through multiple times in our life where we sort of reconsider where we're at and where we're going, and that transitions are taking place all across life. But certainly in adolescence, that search, the need to really find where you're at is particularly important. And when you sort of try on all these different hats and you can't find one that fits, that has consequences.
Yeah. What would those consequences be?
Well, I think that there is an association between identity diffusion and a lack of it's a sort of drifting, right? It's associated with substance abuse problems. It's associated with deviance, right? Delinquency. So, yeah, it is. It's important that we discover who we are in order to form good relationships with others, and to have a healthy self-growth.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Identity was huge for me. It was just, and I think that was partially because that was I just didn't come out of adolescence with that. You know what I mean? I was in the I'm trying to be too many things world, and it was it was causing me struggles. So yeah, when I was doing my psychology degree, I was fascinated by all the research on identity and expressive identity and stuff like that. And it kind of comes it kind of relates to the I think the Alice in Wonderland story a little bit, because what's the resounding question in that? Who are you, right? So I think identity is a big theme in that story as well. Was it Lewis Carroll that wrote that one? I think.
So,
yeah. Anyways, that's kind of a little off track, but that's all good. Can you talk about the type of adverse effects that research suggests early childhood trauma has on social and emotional development? Sure.
Yeah, childhood trauma is such an important topic, and I'm not an expert in research in childhood trauma, but I'm aware. I think of the general picture of research, and there's a few things that really stand out to me with regard to childhood trauma, and one is how disturbingly common it is, and I looked at this study that was an analysis of a longitudinal project called the Canadian Longitudinal Study on Aging. And so it was looking at middle-aged and older adults, and it asked them about their experiences with adverse childhood events. And they found that 60% of these middle-aged and older adults had at least one adverse childhood experience, like at least one trauma, like physical abuse was the most common one, witnessing intimate partner violence, emotional abuse. So disturbingly common is one takeaway, I think, from the research that's there. And a second one is the devastating impact that childhood trauma has in the here and now and in the long term. It has an adverse impact physically, psychologically, socially. It affects neurological development. The stress of childhood trauma impacts the immune system. So children who experience trauma are more likely to develop chronic illnesses like diabetes and cardiovascular problems. It's associated with substance abuse later in life and other health compromising behaviors like smoking. It's associated with obesity. It's associated with a range of mental health risks like depression and anxiety problems, and it's dose dependent, so that the more of these adverse childhood experiences that one has, the more devastating the effects. And I think one estimate is that for children who have 6 or more adverse childhood experiences, their longevity is affected by 20 years. So they live 2 decades less if they experience this high number of adverse childhood events. So
wow.
Devastating consequences, and probably the saddest part is that there's an intergenerational component to this, so that adults who have experienced adverse childhood experiences, their children are more likely to experience that sort of trauma as well. So devastating impact of trauma. And that's all pretty dark. If there's any positive to come out of it is that children are resilient and adaptable. and there's plenty of research, is a third key thing to highlight. There's plenty of research that intervening, especially early on, right? Early intervention is important, can mitigate those effects. So things like parent training programs where, perhaps a community nurse is regularly checking in on a family, school programs, such as mentorship programs and so forth, resilience building sorts of interventions, one-on-one therapies like cognitive behavior therapy. There's good evidence that so long as the intervention is starting early, that a lot of those devastating consequences can be minimized.
Yes, that kind of relates in the intergenerational part of it. I remember when I was doing my psychology degree, I was volunteering at the methadone clinic downtown, and there was some clients there that they had that were like, it was the third generation of that family that had become addicted to opiates and was now in the methadone program trying to get off of them, right? So it is, it can be, how do you break that chain, right? Of the intergenerational trauma. Cool, so we've highlighted, like I feel it's safe to say, and tell me if you disagree, that if we, if society really wants to see the mental health rates of future generations drop, we need to increase more resources on that critical stage of development. Do you feel that that's an accurate theory as well?
It's a crucial time of life. And for sure, I think that interventions that are designed to support the well-being of children and youth have a payoff in terms of their mental well-being in the long term.
Gotcha. With regards to children and youth in the community, how important is it that they feel a sense of community connection to those around them?
Oh, it's so important. It's so important. The community, a sense of community connection is a sense that you have a place, that you belong, right? These are my people, right? And in this community, it's an opportunity to make connections, to make new friendships, opportunities. Community connection gives us opportunities for getting along with others, provides us with a sense of who we go to if we need help. It provides a network of opportunities to learn and develop skills, job opportunities, right? And so connection to the community is vital in terms of healthy development.
I think I agree. And I think it kind of goes down to, we're going to kind of rabbit hole a little bit this direction, but I think it goes down to kind of our hunter and gatherer past, you know what I mean? For hundreds of thousands of years, we kind of lived in those, smaller kind of groups, right? So it's, I think that's just rooted in our DNA.
Yeah. Sure.
I feel after completing my degree and doing the research with you, sort of thing, I kind of left that with a feeling that because that age range from 8 to 12 is so important, right? It's kind of like laying the foundation for the rest of a person's life. If that foundation isn't solid and stable, you know how that analogy goes, right? then you can't build a solid house on a questionable foundation. But I started to think along the lines of, because right now the way the school system is structured, relatively the same class sizes, relatively the same amount of teacher to pupil ratios, 1 to 12. You know what I mean? So tell me if you agree with me. I feel that recognizing how critical that stage is from 8 to 12, 8 to 12 years old, not grade 1 to 12, we need to drastically increase the amount of support the kids get at that specific age in order to have a long-term positive effect on the development of future generations. What thoughts does that trigger in your head? Am I kind of in the right ballpark, or or what do you?
Well, I guess I'd reiterate that it is a really important time, and so I would certainly agree that that focusing resources on supporting children of that age is important. Um, I wouldn't want to say to the exclusion of younger children or older adolescents.
Yeah.
I think the proper supports are needed, but there are unique challenges and opportunities in that late childhood, early adolescent period that I certainly think that support and resources should be directed toward.
Okay, so we're going to kind of move on to a little bit more of a new theme. So in our discussions, kind of prepping for this, we talked and you mentioned how kids today live in a very age segregated world, in the sense that, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to grade 12, it's one cohort, an age group kind of thing. Could you talk about the effects this has on childhood development, this new age segregation?
Yeah, well, and I think, if you think about what life is like for children, and particularly in this middle childhood, early adolescence time, increasingly they're, from the time they wake up until the time they go to bed, they're spending time almost exclusively in the company of same age peers, right? And so before school, during school, is 25 or 30 same age peers in the classroom. After school extracurricular activities online, they're spending all of this time exclusively in the company of same age peers. And for sure, it's important to develop healthy relationships with same age peers. But if you're doing that to the exclusion of relationships with those outside of your peer age groups, then that can be problematic, right? There are potential harms, many would argue, to both young and old, right? You talk about Erikson, and for Erikson, the major social challenge of midlife is generativity, giving of yourself, guiding younger generations. And so it's depriving older adults of the satisfaction and purpose that comes from generativity, and it's depriving children of the nurturance, support, and guidance of older adults. So that's the risk of age segregation, is that all of the benefits that come from interactions with those outside of your immediate age group are not being realized.
And what kind of negative effects, or maybe not negative is the right word, but what kind of effects would one expect from that, or does the research show?
Yeah, well, as I say, it's the opportunities for guidance, the opportunities for both generativity and being the recipient of generativity are lost.
What do you feel were the key points in human history that contributed to that age segregation?
Yeah, so the highly age segregated world that we live in, I think, is in part an outcome of well-meaning changes that took place in terms of mandatory education for children, as well as workplace legislation, where laws that prevented children from being in the workplace. So these are well-meaning policies that played a role in the separation of generations. I think that it certainly is accurate to say that the increasing complexity of the world, what is necessary for success in the modern world, does require that education be targeted toward the developmental capabilities of children at particular ages. There's certainly a rationale for age segregation. And as I said, it's important that children form positive relationships with their same age peers. The challenge is when that's taking place exclusively to the detriment of the child through not having the opportunity to benefit from interactions with those of different age groups.
Gotcha. And how new is this characteristic of separating kids into different age groups? Is that like at, when did that start in human history, kind of?
Sure. Well, I mean, if and from an evolutionary psychology perspective, a developmental evolutionary psychology perspective, they talk about this mismatch between what the modern world is like and the way that we have been designed to learn and experience life over the long course of human history. And so when we look at a modern classroom with large groups of children sitting all day at desks with a single adult teaching them, right, sitting passively at desks for an entire day, that's a mismatch with how children have learned for pretty much all of human history up until the last 100 years or so, right? So up until that point, children learned through play and cross age groups, through interacting with, caring for babies, helping with meals, working alongside adults and parents and grandparents and unrelated adults, through storytelling, right? That's how learning took place for most of human history. So from an evolutionary perspective, there's the way that we're designed to learn, and there's what a modern classroom looks like, and a mismatch between them.
Yeah, I've always felt that kind of that mismatch is very evident as well, because if you look at young boys in that 8 to 12 range, right? In our evolutionary past, if you go back tens of thousands of years ago, every cell in their body is driving them to develop your physical abilities, sort of thing, right? To develop competencies and physical prowess, because hunting and gathering was critical to survival, kind of thing, right? So it is a mismatch to, right when they're trying to develop, acute skills for throwing and all that sort of thing, to be asking them to no, sit still. sit still, be quiet and listen. So I feel much in alignment with that. So moving on to, let's talk about the field of research of intergenerational studies. So with the research that's been done on intergenerational connections and social and emotional development, what have been some of the key findings of that in your academic career?
Sure. Well, and we've mentioned Erik Erikson a number of times, and his renowned psychologist and his theory of psychosocial development. He emphasized the importance of intergenerational connection as essential to healthy development, right? Across the lifespan, it provides a sense of wholeness, connection, and purpose. And so many have argued that there's a real need for the establishment and expansion of opportunities for intergenerational connection. And there are many different forms of intergenerational connection or intergenerational programs. It might be older adults volunteering in a classroom to help children academically. It might be children supporting or young adults supporting older adults in some capacity, perhaps in a care facility. Older adults and children working together on a shared activity. Children or youth sharing sites with older adults. So there are programs where, for example, they have university residences within long-term care facilities, and there's this cool sort of sharing dynamic that takes place. I've seen daycares and nurseries within long-term care facilities. So lots of different sorts of intergenerational experiences. Some of these programs are focused on art and leisure. Others are educational, physical activity focused programs, or just conversation and games, right? But it's about getting generations together, and there's lots of evidence that supports the benefits of these. And I've been involved in a number of these of research projects, often including our students, that involve an intergenerational component. And one that always stands out as a really cool one for me was a project that was done a number of years ago with the on-campus childcare. So these are 3 and 4-year-old children and older adult residents at Bethany College side. And so these are 3 or 4-year-olds that would go over and visit with the older adults, and they'd basically have fun together. They had a parachute game and singing together and dancing, mainly on the kids' part of the dancing. But they just had this fun interaction together. And then the student was assessing the impact that this has on the children, on these 3 and 4-year-olds. And one of the cool findings we found was that these really small children were kinder to each other, were nicer in their reactions with each other, an increase in pro-social behavior after these intergenerational experiences. So they really can have a benefit on the children in terms of their empathy and other important sorts of social emotional skills, on their academic skills. And there are different sorts of programs that focus on different things, but quite a lot of evidence that these sorts of programs can have benefits cognitively, benefits socially, decreased bullying and victimization, improved peer relationships. All of these findings have resulted from intergenerational research. And for older adults, decreased social isolation, improved self-esteem, cognitive benefits, right? So there's benefits to both sides. And a really good intergenerational program is one where one side isn't sort of passively observing, such as if you had a parade of children with their Halloween costumes, marching by the older adults in a care facility. That would be less beneficial than if you had a program where they're working together on something that is beneficial for both. Another project that I was a part of had older kids, grade 3 kids, or various ages, from a local elementary school, who would come over to the long-term care facility, and they'd work together on memory books, right? And they were always paired. It was always the same older adult with the same child. And so they developed a real connection with each other, and they worked on these memory books where the kids were asking about the older adult's memory and creating this shared product that they both had a lot invested in. And because they were sort of matched with each other, it was always the same older adult with the same kid, there was this anticipation, a real relationship that developed, and the older adults were very energized on the days when they knew that the kids were coming to visit them.
Nice.
So yeah, really great programs that have a lot of potential benefits for both young and old.
Nice. Was that research done in Red Deer? I can't remember what you said, or is that?
It was. Yeah, it was a project that we did. The first one that I talked about was involving the on-campus childcare and Bethany College side.
Right. Yeah.
And the other one, a local elementary school, West Park Elementary, children that went to that school. There was a program for a number of years with college side as well.
That's awesome. That's a great story. It's a win for sure. So have those programs, that research found those good studies, did those programs find longevity and sustain, or was there some challenges with that?
Well, neither has continued on. They did continue for a number of years.
Yeah.
Things, I mean, the pandemic, of course, right? But it is difficult. I know. I think we're going to talk a bit about sustainability later on. But yeah, those two programs were great programs, but neither one has continued to this time.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's kind of the field of intergenerational connections. Let's kind of dive a little bit more into the childhood range, because the research that you and I did, the 2 years of that, we're focusing on pairing high school kids with grade 5 kids, so that cross-age peer mentorship. Can you tell us about the evidence that exists with reference to the social and emotional benefits of mentorship programs, and specifically cross-age peer mentorship programs?
Sure. Yeah, well, and let me say first that traditional youth mentorship programs, which involve an unrelated adult and a child, there's a lot more research on those, and the research really suggests that they're beneficial, right? So an experienced adult supporting a younger person by teaching them skills, by guiding them, providing social support, and that's a form of intergenerational learning, right? So those traditional youth mentorship programs are an intergenerational program, and they're associated with increased academic performance, increased participation in extracurricular activities, decreased problems at school, less decreases in bullying. So quite a lot of evidence, and I would say that if you look at meta-analyses of those youth mentorship programs, it's moderate, right? It's not a huge effect, but the overwhelming consensus from a meta-analysis is that those mentorship programs have a number of benefits for the mentee. Now, the cross-age mentorship programs are more recent relatively and haven't received as much research, although over the last couple of decades there has been a fair bit. And so meta-analyses of research done with the cross-age mentorship, so now we're talking about within a peer group essentially, right? Like you say, with high school students and grade 5 or 6 students, that cross-age mentorship program, similar benefits, right? So certainly they're as effective as the youth mentorship programs with similar positive outcomes. But additionally, there's this sort of added connection for both the mentor and the mentee in that cross-age relationship, where there's that sense of being able to identify, right? So that the mentor is sort of seeing a bit of themselves in the child that they're mentoring, and the mentor or the mentee is seeing who they could be a bit in the mentor. So there's that ability to relate that we don't see with sort of the adult-child youth mentorship programs, and you know the younger the mentee in a cross-age mentorship program is really looking up to the mentor, right? They're sort of role models who they want to be like, that they idealize, and that they can see themselves in. So yeah, there's evidence supporting both, but some would argue that there's some unique advantages to the cross-age mentorship. And in addition to that sort of identity and idealization part of it, there's the convenience, right, of them both being in school on similar schedules, and so there's a logistical advantage as well as potentially other advantages to the cross-age mentorship programs.
Yeah, that's one thing that pops to mind before we dive into the next one. That when in that that cross-age, in that nights and training program with the high school kids and the grade 5 kids, they connect much differently with those high school kids than they did with me, because I was a 30-year-old student, right? Sort of thing. So to them, I was just another adult, like a teacher kind of thing, right? But I noticed that when those high school boys, like when the clan leaders would, our mentors would come to class, that classroom of grade 5 kids would just erupt. Like it was like rock stars walked into the room, you know what I mean? So it was I can't really explain it, but it was just fascinating to observe, because there is a different type of connection there because they are closer in age range, you know what I mean? And I think Kelly Roslinski and I were kind of brainstorming on this one, and I think it's because they look at them as fellow students and peers, right? Part of it's probably like many things, multifaceted, but part of it is that they're not worried about getting reprimanded from the other students. They look at, they're not worried about getting disciplined, I guess, a little bit less.
The power dynamic isn't there in the same way.
Exactly.
More
That's
egalitarian.
So that's a great way of describing it. Yeah, the power dynamic is much more egalitarian again, and it's fascinating to see. And it was a great program to work with. So let's just kind of lay the framework for that. We'll talk about those 2 years of research and then continue on through the questions. So The research that I was lucky enough to do with Dr. Wells was, it was a cross-age peer mentorship program called Nights in Training. And the first year of the research, it was just a pilot project. So we worked with one school, one high school and one elementary school. Conveniently, they were very close together. So we had, I think we had 5 or 6 high school mentors and about 30 mentees. It was just one classroom. And then, so we did some training with the high school mentors, and we were testing this curriculum that had been developed in Calgary called Nights in Training. And it was 12 lessons that the grade 5 kids received from the high school mentors. And essentially the way the framework of it worked is we would give them some training on how, this is what the curriculum is of each session. And then the high school kids would go to the classrooms of the grade 5 kids once a week for an hour for 12 weeks in a row to deliver the curriculum. And then we did pre and post measures, and the pilot project was very positive. We found significant improvements in their self-esteem, their hope for the future, their pro-social behavior. And there's another couple in there too, but I can't.
School belongingness.
School belongingness, yeah, that was the one. So lots of, we had, I can't remember how many concepts we were measuring, but we found statistically significant improvements on many of them. So then from there, how did it work from there? Because we got, from that pilot project, we got funding for a second year, did we not? Or was it funding or something? I just remember that, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but all of a sudden, year 2, boom, it expanded drastically. So what was the key, before I talk about year 2, what was the key, I guess, impetus that moved it from a pilot project to a full scale?
Well, I think it was the success of that first year. It generated a lot of buzz, and yeah, a lot of people heard about it and were interested in continuing on with it. Mm-hmm. It was minor, but we did receive a bit of funding that supported collecting data from that second group as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, so based on the effects of the positive findings of the first year, second year we went from one school and one classroom in grade 5s to every single elementary school in Red Deer and all the high schools involved. So it was basically the entire school system for 1 year. And we expanded the program to study a mentorship, cross-age peer mentorship program for girls called Heart-to-Heart Mentoring as well. So expanded immensely for year 2, and we found more positive effects. It was the positive improvements that we found with the boys were along a lot of the same social constructs that we measured the first year. It was the first year that we researched the Heart-to-Heart mentorship program, and we found some very significant positive effects there as well. There was improvements in school belongingness, body image. Improvements in body image, I remember, were one very interesting finding that differed from the girls to the boys research. So all in all, those 2 years of research added to the research literature that cross-age peer mentorship is, a positive, has positive effects on both the mentors and the mentees. And, I feel, if implemented in a longitudinal manner, would have a positive effect on the future as well. So that's kind of the framework of the program. Just free-flowing, Greg, talk about what you thought were the important findings of that 2 years of that research.
No, I think you summarized it well, Tyler. For sure, it was impressive, the improvements that we saw, the benefits that we saw to the mentees. We had hoped to more formally assess the mentors, and we didn't collect as much data as we would have liked from the mentors, but absolutely, anecdotally, the mentors got a lot of value out of the experience as well. So a really successful project, and it was great to be a part of it. It's one that in my classes, I often talk about some of the research projects that I've been involved with, and that's one that I typically measure. And it was, you know, with being in higher ed, like those high school students, a lot of them come here right afterwards. And I remember for several years after the project that there were students in my classes who had been a part as mentors of the project.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah. What would be, I'm kind of having a few peripheral thoughts here. Let me organize them. So what would be the ongoing benefits, do you feel, if cross-age peer mentorship programs were built into the curriculum of the education system, so that it was just like, it wasn't like a research study that happened, oh, that was super positive, look at all these great findings we have, moving right along, and nothing changes, you know what I mean? Yeah. Let's rabbit hole down that one. If just, you know, if we were able to convince educators all over the country, globe, you know, hey, this is positive, you know, what would be the long-term effects of that, do you feel?
Yeah, well, really good. I think it would be.
That's it, nailed it. It'd be really good. Sorry, proceed.
It would be great to see, right? I think that you know, we'd see, you know, for the mentees, we'd see them more connected to the school, more connected to their peers. We'd see fewer absences. And, you know, since the pandemic, the rates of absence have increased dramatically, right? And I think this kind of program is good at addressing that sort of issue. They feel more connected to the school. They're more likely to attend, feel more competent, more willing to work hard, more willing to keep at it, better grades, better academic achievement, pro-social behavior and attitudes. And, you know, for the mentors, you know, again, increased connectedness to the school, reduced dropout rates, higher self-esteem and empathy, right? So, you know, conflict resolution skills, I think it would be wonderful if there was this sort of program was really built into the curriculum. I think it would have a positive impact. And you're really impacting the school climate, right? So it isn't only students that benefit, you know, teachers' well-being would be beneficially impacted, I think, by these sorts of programs being a regular part of things as well.
That's a long list of really positive outcomes. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. For when we were doing this research, and tell me what you think about this idea, because, you know, we did the 2 years of research, and then I kind of started to develop a vision of, you know, I felt like this should be just a part of our culture, right? Like it just, you know, I felt like, you know, in my mind, it kind of, I think that's the way humans used to interact. I'm going from a historical evolutionary perspective for tens of thousands of years. And then the Industrial Revolution happened, which kind of had primarily fathers at the time leaving the house to go work for 12 hours a day. And then it was kind of, the education system was partially a product of, okay, well, we need something to do, somewhere for these kids to go while parents are gone to the factories working. So I think that's the modern education system is a large way a product of the Industrial Revolution. But moving forward, my vision was, it's like, okay, so we did, I think it was, you know, grade 11s with grade 5 sort of thing, right? So tell me what you think about this vision if we were to, you know, thought experiment down this. If every year in the education system, because it is age segregated, and that's probably unlikely to change, but you can start to intermingle those. So if every year, every kid participated in a cross-age peer mentorship program as a mentee for the first 6 years, and then in grade 7 they flipped over and then became mentors. So essentially they have, you know, grade 7s mentoring grade 1s, 8s, 2s, yada yada yada. So every single year, every kid is either a mentee or a mentor in a cross-age peer mentorship program. That's a big question. I think from your previous answer, you'd probably agree that that would likely have good results.
Yeah.
What would be some of the logistic challenges to that? Maybe a better question.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I'm the right one to ask about the the logistic challenges of setting up something like that.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty big, I think. But I mean, all I can say is that if we could increase the opportunity for children for school to involve regular interaction between different age groups, that there'd be a lot of value in that for both sides.
We are in alignment there. So here's a good question, because this kind of resonates with the research that we did and also the other positive research that you talked about. Let's talk about the challenges of taking the findings, the positive findings of that applied research, and then actually getting it to take hold in a sustainable manner.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question, and with any intervention research, sustainability is an important thing to consider, right? Whether it's a new intervention that you're evaluating an ongoing program. If you find positive outcomes, you want things to keep rolling, right? You want things to scale up. You want to expand them, and demonstrating that an intervention is effective, right, through a small research project is a vital initial part of things. But the full benefits of the program aren't going to be realized unless it can scale up, unless you can keep things rolling. So what's important in terms of sustainability? And money is a key thing. Money's always key. Often the evaluation project itself is supported by a grant or other resources, but after that, you need buy-in from the host organization and the community at large, right? The host organization needs to be willing and able to access resources, willing to direct fundraising efforts toward keeping the program going and expanding it. And so, the likelihood that you'll get that buy-in, that willingness from the host organization is going to be increased through a number of things. Effective communication is key, and I think the onus is on researchers. For sure, dissemination of research is a key part of things, right? It's an ethical part of things that you need to share what you found. But typically with research, often that's in an academic conference or a publication, and there really is a need for a plain language sharing with community partners, with stakeholders, to get the word out that this is what this program involved, and these were the fantastic outcomes that occurred as a result of it, right? So part of getting the host organization and the community to buy in and sustain a program is effective communication, plain language communication to the organization and to the community. Another important part of sustainability, I think, is from an early stage, you need to make sure that the program aligns well with the strategic goals and direction of the host organization, so that in communicating, you can make that case that this program fits seamlessly within your goals as an organization. I think it's, if you're scaling up, that's going to involve staff. So getting motivated staff to buy in is an important part of sustainability. Programs also have to be flexible, right? I mean, things change, right? Events occur, and you need to be able to pivot, to make adjustments as necessary to sustain the program. Having a champion, right? Someone like Sean to get out there and keep talking about the program and sharing it with the broader community is really vital. a champion like yourself, Tyler, right? To just, get the word out and let people know that this is a program that works well. And community partners, right? It's if you can sort of share the risks, I guess, of sustainability, if you can communicate, if the school board's involved, but having other organizations that are partnering, it helps with communication, it helps with fundraising, it and it makes it more likely that the program will continue on.
Yeah, so it's multifaceted. There's many things that need to be in place.
Yeah, well, and politics, of course, is part of things as well, right? And I guess in the context of being flexible, right? New governments come in, they have new priorities, new sorts of views about what the direction things should go, and so you have to be ready as a program to sort of go with the flow,
Yeah, and that's, I think, the one that stuck out the most for me out of those that you listed is that you need that champion to drive the ship. Like, you really need that person that's doing it either way, right? Because for 2 years, that was my role. For the first year was an awesome experience, and then the second year took off, and all of a sudden, the whole school boards had bought in, kind of thing, right? I was having a meeting with all the principals. They were all 100% on board. So we did the second year of the study, more positive findings, sort of thing. And then at the end of that year, I went to a meeting with all the heads of the school board, sort of thing, and was pitching my idea to make this long-term, sustainable, permanent part of the Red Deer culture, right? Like, this is what we should do forever in Red Deer, kind of thing, was my vision, right? And then it was the problem was that I had been the champion of it for 2 years, and somebody needed to fill that role, right? Like, because I was stepping out and moving on, and somebody needed to take the reins on that. And there was one female teacher at Hunting Hills that had expressed interest, but then it kind of hit a wall because she was moving to New Zealand at the end of the year after that, right? So you need people to buy in, but then you also need someone that's highly motivated, that stays connected to it, because I just wasn't able to find anyone else to take the reins and keep it going from there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's the Nights in Training and program and the heart-to-heart mentorship cross-age mentorship programs. They were really great, and they didn't continue on after that second year. But when I think of sustainability, I see the Nights in Training in particular informed the Grow Boy, now Grow Kids initiative.
Yeah.
And I think that in that sense and the important part that mentorship plays in the yearly Grow Kids Day is evidence of sustainability of a sort. And I was, it was so, it was such good news to me when I heard that many of those original mentees in the Nights in Training are now mentors in the Grow Kids days. So,
yeah, like that's 100% positive win. If even though the cross-age peer mentorship programs in the schools, we added to the research literature that says it's a good idea. They didn't continue, but the Grow Kids Day now I feel like that has taken root. Like, that seed's planted. It's been happening for 13 years now for the boys and 21 years for the girls, right? So that's I think that's an extremely positive win. That day is super special, and it's great to see that the community leaders in Red Deer have got behind it to make it sustainable. And like, if you think about, I remember I did some approximate calculations, and there's been over 20,000 kids that have participated in that one day now. But when you add up, 2,000 per year approximately, or I think it's about 1,700 or 1,800 grade 5s we have in Red Deer per year. But so yeah, it's been over 20,000 kids have participated in that program, and all sorts of connections happened and opportunities for positive feedback that would have never happened before without it.
Yeah, awesome initiative for sure.
Yeah. Kind of a one thought that hit my mind was, because we have, if you look at the Red Deer cohort, since Denise started that Go Girls program, right? How researchable of a question would this be? Would it be possible to, do a comparison of the grade of kids that went through, the grade 5 in Red Deer, right? So that participated in that program. How possible would it be to compare that population of people to kids in the rest of the province that have been participating that over 20 years and see if there's a correlation there at all? I feel like it's, you probably could research that question, but how would you do so, and what would be some of the challenges with that?
I'd have to give that some thought, Tyler, as to how you could set that up. I think there are a variety of ways of establishing the success of the program. My first thought would be a sort of qualitative approach. Go out and talk with some of the many people, students who have gone through the program, and get some insight into what their experiences are and what they've got out of it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if some sort of quantitative comparison would be feasible.
There's a lot of moving parts with it, yeah.
but certainly you could explore the benefits of the program, I think, through people telling their stories.
Yeah, that's what we'll be doing for the last 2 episodes of this. We're going to talk to 2 students that were in grade 5 when we started the program, and we're clan leaders and high school leaders in the program later on, and they're now young adults. So we'll be doing some of that.
Awesome.
One last question here, and I've kind of been thinking about going back to school to do my master's degree. And I was wondering, I was basically on this, what I think, and I was basically kind of envisioning doing a master's degree and a PhD in studying cross-age peer mentorship and developmental psychology, right? Is that something that you would be interested in doing for like a long-term longitudinal study, for like a 5-year study or something like that?
I'd love to be involved if with a project like that. That's a great idea, Tyler. Pursue your master's degree. It's go for it.
At Red Deer Polytechnic, they don't grant master's degrees, right? So that would be something I would have to pitch to a different university, correct?
Yeah, you'd have to find a potential supervisor and a program. Do your research, and you might find that there's a good match there with a university for an initiative.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's something that's been kind of, since we started shooting this podcast, it's been something that's kind of, ether thoughts that are floating through my head. You'd be like, that would be a really interesting thing to dive into. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I guess kind of final thoughts. What are your final thoughts on supporting the physical, mental, and social well-being of children in our communities?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is that in the end, all of us have an interest in optimizing development and doing what we can to assure the well-being of our kids. And certainly this means policy and practice, intervention, assuring that basic needs are met for shelter, for safety, for security. But beyond this, it also means that we should do what we can to support children in forming meaningful relationships with others, in establishing competencies, in providing opportunities for self-growth, for finding autonomy and a sense of purpose. There's a research institute known as the Search Institute, which a few decades ago came up with this evidence-based list of 40 developmental assets. These include external assets like family support or school-based programs like mentorship programs, positive relationships with adults outside the family, caring neighborhoods, and internal assets like achievement, motivation, personal values like integrity, honesty, interpersonal competence, identity, self-esteem. And so the Search Institute identified these assets, these evidence-based assets. And so I think we have an obligation to be asset enablers, right? To help the children around us, whether we're parents or not, or work with children or not. I think there are things we can do to enable those assets in the children in our communities. And we really have an interest in doing so, right? Because well-being in children translates to well-being in communities and society. Now, so we should be supporting programs like Nights in Training, certainly. There's only so much that any one program can do, but initiatives like this have tremendous value in terms of building positive assets and supporting positive growth in our children. So I think that would be, do what you can to be an asset enabler and to build well-being in the children around you.
Great, that's great information to share. I love it. My final thoughts on it are kind of, that I feel that focusing on early childhood development is probably the most effective uses of resources if you want to eliminate mental health in the future, because it's kind of addressing and hoping to solve the problem before it starts. You know what I mean? If you can help kids navigate that transitional age from 8 to 12 successfully, so they navigate all those social and emotional changes successfully, then they're less likely to have lifelong mental health issues in the future. So my feeling is that the most resources to prevention of mental health should go into that age group. Do you feel the same way, or is that supported by science, or am I kind of getting a little off track?
You're not getting off track, and I would, as I said earlier, I absolutely support resources being directed toward the needs of children of this age. There are important needs for younger and older children as well. But I guess all I could say is I agree with you that we should, we should focus on improving the well-being of all children.
Awesome, I love it. Now we get to serve the ball to Orion. Do you have any questions to hit us with? What are we at for runtime? When we were talking to Sean Granger, he kind of talked a bit about how the school system is kind of structured as pyramids, where it's focused in the beginning, but as you go into like middle and high school, you gain more options. And he did talk about more of a reverse model, where around elementary school, you'd be given more options first and then kind of focus down that path as you continued later on into school. How would that help with like forming things like expressive identity and help form identity better, I suppose?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting position that Sean's taking, and I'm not sure, all of the rationale he's bringing to it, but
it was just like a thought experiment. I think he kind of brought up, or just like an idea for how going in that direction, I suppose.
Yeah, and I like the idea of having lots of things to try, lots of opportunities, and sort of trying on different hats early in life. But I think that opportunity should be at least as broad in this early adolescence, late adolescence. I mean, that's really when this whole social challenge of discovering identity takes place. And so that sort of trying out lots of different things has great value in high school age children. And I wouldn't want to narrow that in any way. Mm-hmm. But I do see the value, I guess, of expanding what's available early in the school years as well.
Yeah, sorry, finish.
Sorry, so maybe what Sean was suggesting was that things are too rigidly structured for young children, and we should look at expanding possibility, and I think that's a great idea. But I don't know about the reverse pyramid if we're saying that reduction in opportunity as we get older.
No, I don't think that would be a good idea at all. Yeah, that the one topic that comes to mind with that, with the expression, with the sentiment that Sean's expressing is, I feel it would be good because it would give younger kids in that, the first few grades of school some autonomy over their direction. You know what I mean? I think autonomy is a concept that is worth referencing and talking about. I think that we have to, as a society, we have to make sure that we don't accidentally remove autonomy from all kids. You know what I mean? Like they should have a little bit of say in, in what happens in their life, rather than having no autonomy at all and just going where you're told and doing what you're told. And I remember what Sean was saying is that when they get to that grade 6 range and they're the first time they're given any autonomy to choose over anything, he says it's like pulling teeth to get them to make a choice because they're so used to not having the choice, right?
Right.
So I think the strength of that is it would introduce a sense of autonomy in those younger grades, which they don't currently have over their course stuff. So that's my thoughts on that one. What do you got? Any other ones, Orion?
I guess when it comes to like intergenerational relationships, haven't there really been any large scale changes to our in-place systems? Is it lack of awareness or some other, is it the fact that it's just built in?
Yeah, well, it's built in, and I think it's structured as it is in part out of convenience, right? And it's certainly it's an efficient model, right? To have that sort of structure, and we're talking about the school system, right? So having all children starting school at the same time and progressing through at the same time is a convenient and efficient way of doing things. And like I said, I don't think that, I think there is certainly validity in tailoring the nature of education to the developmental capabilities of the students, right? So there is a need to group children together by what their cognitive potential is, right? Although there's variability certainly with any particular age. So I wouldn't say that the solution is to eliminate, I don't want to use the word age segregation. I don't think that we should take away all of that same age learning and the importance of developmentally appropriate education, but we should intersperse it with opportunities to interact with different age groups.
That makes sense, yeah. Hit me with that one again. I had a thought there, but
So, I said in regards to like the intergenerational aspect. Why hasn't there been any more large-scale changes that have come into effect? Is it like lack of awareness, or the fact that it's like built in, or some other issue altogether?
yeah, my feelings on that are kind of the same as Greg's. Is that it's been that way for 150 years, and that's just kind of the way it is. It's become part of our culture and whatnot. And I'm not sure. I think it is a little bit of a lack of awareness. I think it's kind of, it's been many generations since that change happened, and so people come into the world and they just accept that as that's the way the world is, without being fully aware that maybe there is opportunities for improvement there. Anything else?
For bringing like problems of intergenerational intergenerational stuff, is there larger research that could be done to help kind of bring awareness to it, or help kind of promote that, I guess, kind of aspect of study?
So could we do a better job of I guess, publicizing the benefits of intergenerational interaction?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could. I think there are organizations that engage in cross-age membership sorts of initiatives, and yes, supporting those. And yeah, I don't know what strategies one might take to get the word out, but certainly there's a lot of value in doing more of what's being done in terms of cross-age mentorship programs.
Yeah, I think that my thoughts are on that one is it would be interesting. I would love to see, and this would be a longitudinal study, but it would be really interesting to see a well-structured study where you had, one community had built cross-age peer mentorship programs into their education system, and compared to a control group that didn't, right? And then 10 years later, compare the results of that. That would be a fascinating study to do and find the results of that. But like you said, that would be you'd have to, because in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, in order for it to have a internal validity kind of thing, many things would have to be in place. But one thing would be you would want to start before that 8 to 12 range, right? Because the intervention has to happen before and during that, in my mind, to have any positive outcome. And then you would want to do follow-up measurements on that to see what the longitudinal effects were.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, I think that kind of wraps it up. Unless, Ryan, does that cover what you got?
Yeah, mostly.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that is a wrap on the episode with Dr. Wells. The one thing that he brought up, which is great, doing that qualitative analysis of the study. So in the upcoming episodes, we're going to meet some students from Red Deer that received these programs. So they were in grade 5 and participated in the Grow Kids Day as a mentee, and then years later, when they were in high school, they participated as a clan leader and a mentor. And we're going to see what they have to say about the programs, which will be super exciting, I think. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Wells. I appreciate it very much. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. That's my pleasure.